something strange is going on. After the loss of the Detroit Lions in the regular season finale, Ben Johnson and co. have some interesting comments from the game and game plans. Welcome to Bears Digest, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Dylan Guinzy. Thank you for joining me once again. If you have not subscribed already, please do so. It's now at 85.7% of watchers over the last month are not subscribed, so be sure to hit that button and that bell so you are notified on all news, rumors, reactions, everything that you can think of Bears related. We're going to be here with it, so be sure to hit that subscribe button. Before we get into the news here today, this video is brought to you by Kalshi. Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the US. On their platform, you can trade on real-life events, sports, elections, and really everything. If you're in California, Texas, or anywhere across the country, Kalshi is live in all 50 states. For sports fans, you can trade on game outcomes, playoff chances, player performances, all in a regulated market where you can cash out at any time. It's a smarter way to use your sports or news knowledge, and you can close on positions whenever you want. Just like Chicago Bears win total up to the final week of the season. Where can you trade things like that? Kalshi is where you can trade things like that. You can also get a little bit more unique with it with what the announcers will say in a specific given game. That is awesome, and Kalshi is where you can do that. Head to the link in the description. Use code DIGESTNFL. That is code DIGESTNFL to get $20 when you trade 100. Now let's get back to the video. So this game just looked strange from the start. I don't know how you guys feel with this one against the Lions yesterday. Just everything about it was strange. And after the game, after the poor offensive performance, Ben and Caleb seemed to be the angriest that they have ever been this season from CHGO Bears. And it was Adam Johns specifically that witnessed both of them, coming to the locker room and how they were acting, after their conferences and everything like that. They were just so angry. And I think about this game in a game that was not very important. Overall to the seeding, we were kind of locked into the number 2 seed. It was about a 90% chance, and the Eagles ended up losing, and then you lose as well. It was just weird. I think if you're going into the game with sort of these thoughts about it and saying one thing and kind of doing another, then why not just rest your starters and hope for the best? Get to the 2 or 3 seed, and whatever happens. I just think Ben was so dead set on winning this game, but then he also came out with a weird game plan and, something that wasn't very in-depth. We have more on the game plan and what he said about that here in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But I just thought everything about yesterday was very strange. The offense was really bad. The defense was really bad. Only gave up 16 or 19, but they were still really terrible. They can't stop a parked car, and it's just kind of bringing down our emotions and our hopes here going into the playoff push as we now have to obviously face the Packers on Saturday night on Amazon Prime at 7 p.m. Central Time. It's going to be a tough one, and if we can't get our defense to get some stops and we only get the ball 2 times and a half like we did yesterday, it's going to be a problem, and we're going to be a one and done. And a lot of things just didn't make sense about yesterday's game, and it just didn't feel right to me. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think, of course, about that game. But everything about it just felt really, really weird. So we'll get into what Ben Johnson had to say on the matter there. I was not pleased with the offense today. Obviously, it was disgusting. It was pretty disgraceful. All things considered, they picked it up at the end when they needed to. But, of course, they're starting slow every single game. Can't dig ourselves in a hole like that. I was disappointed with the offense as a whole. I let those guys know that. And we have some confirming, reports and items that Ben was furious in the locker room. The effort was terrible. Everything about it was poor yesterday, and Ben Johnson let them have it. I think if you look at this in a positive light, since we are now getting to the playoffs in a spot that we haven't been in quite some time, every time that the Bears have played lackluster football for a 2-week stretch or a 1-week stretch, whatever it is, and Ben Johnson lays into the guys, they come out extra fired up and they play their best ball. Remember, we had 2-game losing streaks here earlier in the season. After that, we rattled off 9 of 10, especially after that first one. So obviously the guys respond to Ben and how he reacts and everything like that. And it's almost to me like it was sort of like planned. Like they just needed to get an extra boost before the playoffs, or extra motivation. That's just kind of how it seemed to me. It was just weird. It almost seemed like it was manufactured anger at some points there in the game. But the 1916 loss of the Detroit Lions, they can have fun with that all they want to. They are going to be in Cancun, Mexico next week watching this game on the couch, sipping pina coladas. So it doesn't really matter there. They had nothing to lose. That was their last game. Whatever. They came out and played as hard as they possibly could, and they beat us by 3 points. That really doesn't matter to me as much. It didn't change the outcome of really anything other than maybe giving yourself some confidence there. If Caleb would have hit the record and the offense would have looked better, maybe that says something. But the offense has looked good all year for the most part. So, in my opinion, I would have just rested the starters. Just looking back on it now, there was really no positives that came out of that, and especially with the game plan that we put out, none of the plays that we were seeing called were unique. Right? There was not any different or unique styles of plays. The routes were all just basic, right? And Ben Johnson is not usually like that in a normal game plan, and I would expect him to be deep in his bag for this game against the Packers on Saturday. But it was very vanilla yesterday, you could say there. So the final score, 1916. The offensive performance in our total yards was really, really bad. 270 total, 205 passing, and 65 rushing. I think we had just 16 carries to the running backs. And it almost seemed like Ben was trying to avoid the run game after it didn't work too much early on, which, can be obvious at times. But I think, especially going into the playoffs, into the cold weather, and us being able to work the Packers a little bit in the run game, in those 2 times that we did play them, especially that first game in the second half, I think that he's going to rely on the run game, and I feel like he was trying to keep the running backs fresh still yesterday. Although the starters were playing, he was trying to maneuver things around so that everybody was still kind of ready to go and fresh this week. But just kind of weird stuff overall. I think we could have ran the ball in that second half a lot better and wasted some more clock. But it just didn't happen that way. I think this is one of those games where you kind of just need a flush. But when we look back on it, it was really just strange. Just an odd game and an odd situation there in the final week of the season. And on top of that, we're getting into the news here today. Sorry about that. Ben Johnson had his statement on the game plan itself. That's one we'll have to take a look at the tape and figure out why that was. I didn't feel like it was one of our more elaborate plans. I felt it was one of our simpler plans. We need to do a better job of executing it and coaching it up. So it's just weird. It's one of those things where, like, if you're playing your starters and you're trying to win the game, but you're not bringing in a game plan to do such thing, then what was the entire goal? Right? Like, that's where it kind of raises questions. And Ben is always on his P's and Q's. He always has a great game plan. He always manages the clock well. He does everything well, and he always has a reason for what he does. In every press conference afterwards, he explains to everybody, what his goal was in these certain moments. But this one just felt really vague. Like, why are you going into a game where you really wanted to win? You wanted to put your starters out there and risk their health because you wanted to win that game. And you come out there with a very simple game plan, and you think that's going to beat a motivated Lions team who that's their last game and they want to end it on a high note, similar to what the Bears did last year against the Packers, ended on a high note, get some momentum going into the offseason, and you go out there and you put a game plan out there like that. So very weird stuff. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'm always curious to see other sides of this and in other opinions. I don't think we should worry too much on the offensive side, but those slow starts have been a thing all year, and that needs to be fixed here this week. It's going to have to be a shootout since our defense is really, really bad against the Packers here this week. My opinion, you got to go out and you got to score 30. You got to plan it that way, right? And to do that, we need the ball in our hands, and we have to be efficient with those drives, especially early on. We can't have 3 and outs or 3 and outs to start the game in that first half, and then we look up at the clock and we got 2 minutes left before the half's over, and we haven't even gotten a first down, right? So that stuff needs to be addressed. It needs to be fixed. Hopefully this motivation here this week from Ben gets them into a better spot heading into Saturday's game against the Packers. One thing that I wanted to note here before we end off this video is Packers are coming off a game where they rested their starters, and it's a short week. So they have fully healthy starters, and it's a short week on prime time, obviously, playoffs, but it's a night game, and it's on Saturday. And the Bears played their starters. They got banged up once again, and they're going into a short week. I, I just feel like the league hates us for some reason. They're giving us a short week when the Packers are well rested, and the Packers are going to be pretty much favored in this game. It's just not looking good. I don't have very high optimism about it. Hopefully, as the week goes on, we feel a little bit happier and excited for this game because we don't get these often. But in terms of winning the game, man, we're going to need to see some stuff early on to get us going in the right direction. But thank you guys for joining Bears Digest once again. We're going to be here all week, of course, with all of the updates going into the playoffs. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be another incredible atmosphere at Soldier Field. Hopefully it pays off to get our first playoff win in a very, very long time. So thank you guys for joining Bears Digest. As always, bear down.